a cowboy on the brink of death, but the Apache woman's whisper brought him back. The sun was beginning to sink behind the jagged peaks of the Arizona desert, casting long, orange shadows over the dry, cracked earth. Cole McAllister rode alone, his hat pulled low to shade his tired eyes. The day had been long, hotter than most, and every mile seemed to stretch endlessly before him. His horse, a lean chestnut named Dusty, moved slowly, plodding through the rough terrain with heavy steps. Cole's hand instinctively rested on the worn leather of his saddle, his fingers tracing the grooves that had formed over years of hard use. He had been riding alone for days, with no one to talk to, no one to share a laugh or even a word with. The silence pressed in on him, thick and almost unbearable, broken only by the occasional whistle of wind across the desert and the soft clopping of Dusty's hooves. Cole's face, sunburned and weathered, bore the lines of a hard life. Each crease told a story of long nights on the trail, of cattle drives that had tested both body and spirit, of friendships lost to distance and time. He had come west as a young man full of hope and dreams, believing he could carve out a life on the open plains. But the land was unforgiving, and fortune had not been kind. His small ranch, once full of promise, had been swallowed by drought and bad luck. He had watched helplessly as crops withered and cattle weakened, feeling the weight of failure pressing down on his shoulders. Even his closest friends had drifted away, drawn to other opportunities or swallowed by their own hardships. Now the desert felt like a mirror of his life, harsh, empty, and unyielding. The wind shifted suddenly, whipping dust and small stones across the trail. Cole squinted through the haze, trying to make out the path ahead. Dusty shook his head, tossing his mane, uneasy. Cole tightened his grip on the reins and urged his horse forward. The trail was treacherous, littered with jagged rocks that could easily twist an ankle or snap a hoof. He knew every step counted. One mistake could leave them stranded out here with no help for miles. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in deep shades of red and purple. Shadows lengthened, and the desert seemed to change, becoming unfamiliar and threatening as darkness approached. Cole's stomach growled, a sharp reminder that it had been nearly a day since he had eaten anything substantial. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small piece of jerky, chewing slowly. Dusty sniffed at the morsel, but Cole shook his head. There was barely enough for himself, and he could not risk running out completely. Water was even scarcer. He had drunk sparingly all day, rationing what little he had left. Every sip was precious, every drop a reminder that survival was no simple matter here. As the trail wound between jagged cliffs, Cole felt a growing weariness settle into his bones. His legs ached from riding, his back stiffened, and his eyes burned from staring into the relentless sun. His mind drifted to memories he had long tried to bury, the laughter of his sister as a child, the pride of his father when he first rode a horse, the warmth of a home that no longer existed. Loneliness wrapped around him like a thick blanket, heavy and suffocating. Yet he kept moving, because stopping meant giving in, and giving in meant death out here. The desert did not forgive hesitation. A sudden, sharp gust of wind blew across the canyon, rattling the rocks and sending small pebbles skittering along the ground. Cole instinctively pulled his hat tighter and squinted against the dust. The sky darkened with the approach of a sandstorm, a wall of swirling sand that seemed to rise from the horizon like a living thing. Dusty shied, his hooves slipping on loose stones. Cole spoke softly, murmuring words of comfort, but the horse only trembled beneath him. The storm moved faster than he expected, and in minutes, the world around him became a blur of orange and brown. Visibility dropped to almost nothing, and the trail disappeared entirely beneath the shifting sands. Cole's heart pounded. He knew the desert could be merciless, and a sandstorm like this could bury a man alive if he was not careful. He urged Dusty forward, trying to follow the faint impressions of the trail, but the storm seemed to have erased all familiar landmarks. The wind bit at his face, carrying grains of sand that stung like tiny needles. He squinted, fought, and pressed on, but fatigue had begun to slow his movements. Every muscle in his body ached, every joint protested, and his mind felt like it was swimming in a haze of heat, thirst, and exhaustion. Hours passed, though time seemed meaningless. The sun had set entirely, leaving a sky darkened by the storm. Cole could barely see his own hands in front of his face. Dusty stumbled and Cole gripped the reins tightly, heart in his throat. Another misstep and both could fall, and neither would likely survive. The wind screamed past him, and in that chaos, Cole felt a strange detachment from reality. He could almost see the edges of his life stretching away from him, fading into the desert around him. Every memory, every dream, every hope felt distant, almost like someone else's life he was watching from afar. When he finally forced Dusty to stop at the base of a shallow canyon, he collapsed onto the ground, his body trembling from fatigue and fear. The sandstorm had passed over with a vengeance, leaving the world coated in a thin layer of dust and silence. Cole lay there, breathing heavily, listening to the sound of his own heart pounding in his chest. His lips were dry and cracked, and his skin burned from the sun and wind. Every step he had taken seemed to weigh on him now, and the edges of consciousness began to blur. He realized with a chilling clarity that he might not make it through the night. Cole's mind wandered, drifting to regrets. He thought about the life he could have had, the people he had lost, and the choices he had made. There was anger, yes, and sorrow, but beneath it all was a quiet, gnawing fear, a fear of fading away, unnoticed, alone in a desert that didn't care whether he lived or died. He tried to shake the thought, tried to tell himself that he could survive, that he had faced hardship before and endured. But the desert was testing him now, pushing him to his limits, and he was dangerously close to the edge. He closed his eyes, letting himself rest for just a moment, though he knew it might be dangerous. Dusty lay down beside him, warm and steady, offering a small measure of comfort in the overwhelming loneliness. Cole's breathing slowed, but his body still trembled from exhaustion. Somewhere far off in the canyon, a coyote howled, a mournful sound that echoed the emptiness he felt inside. He wondered, not for the first time, whether anyone would ever find him if he did not make it. His life had become a series of mistakes and missed chances, and now it seemed the desert might claim him as its final reward. And yet, even as the darkness pressed in, a small flicker of awareness remained. Somewhere beyond the pain, beyond the fear and despair, Cole felt a strange sense of waiting, as if the world had not completely abandoned him. But what that waiting meant, he could not know. He only knew that he was at the brink, suspended between life and death, and that the night ahead would decide which way he would fall. Cole awoke to a faint rustling sound. At first, he thought it was the wind or perhaps a coyote wandering nearby. But the sound was different, softer, deliberate, almost rhythmic. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the harsh sunlight that had begun to pierce the edges of the canyon. His head throbbed, and every muscle in his body ached as if he had been thrown against the rocks. Dusty, his loyal horse, was standing close by, nostrils flaring and ears alert, his movements cautious. Cole tried to sit up, but the effort left him dizzy. His throat was parched, his lips dry and cracked. He reached for the small canteen at his side, but it was nearly empty. Every drop of water he had left felt too precious to waste. He forced himself to breathe slowly, focusing on the sounds around him. That was when he heard it again, a soft, almost whisper-like voice carried on the breeze. It was human and it was close. Cole's heart raced. He tried to sit upright fully, scanning the canyon walls, but all he could see were jagged rocks and shadows stretching long in the morning sun. The voice came again, this time clearer, and with it a sense of calm that seemed almost impossible in his exhausted state. It was a woman's voice, gentle and melodic, carrying words he could not understand, but that somehow felt comforting. He strained to stand, his legs trembling beneath him, and slowly, carefully, followed the sound. Dusty moved beside him, matching his pace as if sensing that something, or someone, was there to help. As he rounded a bend in the canyon, Cole caught a glimpse of a figure moving gracefully among the rocks. She was small, clothed in traditional garments that seemed to blend with the earth, her hair long and dark, swaying with each step. Her presence was quiet yet commanding, as if she belonged entirely to this rugged landscape. Cole hesitated, unsure whether to call out. For a moment he considered hiding, imagining that she might be dangerous. He had grown up hearing stories of settlers and native people clashing, of distrust and fear crossing generations. But something about her, the way she moved, the calm in her eyes, made him pause. There was no threat in her presence, only a quiet insistence that he come closer. He took another shaky step, and she stopped, tilting her head slightly as if acknowledging his struggle. The soft whispers returned, repeated in a pattern that seemed like a song. Cole could not understand the words, but he felt them penetrate the fog of exhaustion clouding his mind. It was as though the voice was not only speaking to him, but reaching inside, pulling him back from the edge where his body and spirit teetered dangerously. When he finally reached her, she extended her hand, revealing a small bundle of herbs tied together with a thin strip of leather. Cole frowned, unsure what he was supposed to do. The woman only nodded, her eyes steady and kind. Hesitantly, he took the bundle and inhaled its earthy scent. A surprising warmth spread through him, a sensation of comfort he had not felt in days. You are hurt," the woman said softly, her voice carrying a lilt that seemed almost musical. Cole realized she was speaking slowly, clearly, so he might understand. He nodded, unable to speak, his throat too dry. The woman smiled faintly and motioned for him to sit on a flat rock nearby. He obeyed, collapsing onto the stone with a groan. She knelt in front of him, setting the bundle of herbs on the ground. Slowly, deliberately, she began to work, crushing the leaves and roots between her fingers. The smell was strong but not unpleasant, and Cole found himself breathing more easily than he had in days. He watched, fascinated, as her hands moved with precision, guided by knowledge and experience that seemed almost magical to him. For hours, she tended to him, applying poultices to his scratches and bruises, wrapping his ankle with soft strips of cloth to stabilize it. Every action was gentle, deliberate, and purposeful. Cole felt his body relaxing in ways he had thought impossible. Pain was still there, yes, but it dulled under her careful attention. Even more surprising was the way his mind seemed to calm, the endless racing thoughts slowing down as he listened to the soft murmur of her voice. When she finished, she sat back on her heels and watched him intently. Cole, for the first time in days, felt a sense of peace. He tried to thank her, but his voice came out as a dry croak. She only smiled and shook her head, her eyes kind. Instead of words, she whispered again, small phrases, repeated over and over. Cole could not understand the language, but there was a rhythm to it, a cadence that seemed to pull him back from the edges of despair. He realized he was no longer thinking of death, no longer consumed by his fear. Instead, a spark of hope had been lit inside him, fragile but undeniable. The sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the canyon in warm, golden light. Cole sat quietly, feeling the warmth on his face and the gentle breeze against his skin. Dusty grazed nearby, occasionally glancing at him with soft eyes, as if sensing the change that had come over his rider. The woman stood, gathering her herbs and murmuring softly. She did not speak directly, but her presence alone was enough to reassure him. Cole wanted to ask her name, to learn more about her, but the words stuck in his throat. He realized how much he had forgotten the simple act of trusting someone else. For years, he had relied only on himself, pushing everyone away, believing that survival meant facing the world alone. Yet now, in this remote canyon, he understood that help could come in the most unexpected forms, and that the strength of another person could be as vital as any horse or weapon. Night fell, and the canyon grew quiet except for the occasional call of a distant owl. The woman built a small fire with precision, careful to keep it low and hidden. Cole watched, fascinated by her skill. She motioned for him to rest near the fire, and he lay down, letting the warmth seep into his bones. For the first time in days, he closed his eyes without fear. The whispers continued, soft and steady, a lullaby that carried him into a light, dreamless sleep. In his dreams, Cole saw the desert in a new way, not as a place of endless struggle and despair, but as a living world full of hidden beauty and unexpected kindness. He imagined the woman moving silently through the canyon, her whispers guiding him, teaching him. He felt safe in a way he had not felt since childhood, wrapped in the comfort of another's presence and care. When he awoke the next morning, the woman was gone. Cole scanned the canyon, but there was no sign of her, only the small fire smoldering softly and the faint scent of herbs lingering in the air. Dusty nudged him gently, reminding him that the world still demanded attention. Cole rose slowly, feeling stronger than he had the day before. The pain had not vanished, but it had lessened, replaced by a quiet determination. He realized as he adjusted the saddle and checked his supplies that the woman had done more than heal his body. She had awakened something inside him, a sense of hope, a belief that he could survive this desert, and perhaps, one day, find his way back to the life he had lost. He did not know who she was, or why she had chosen to help him, but he understood that some kindnesses did not need explanation. Cole set off along the trail once more, Dusty moving with renewed energy beneath him. The canyon stretched out ahead, harsh and unforgiving as always, but now it seemed less like a prison and more like a challenge he could meet. Somewhere deep in the shadows, the woman's whispers lingered, a reminder that even in the most desolate places, there could be guidance, comfort, and the quiet power of someone who believed in life when all else seemed lost. As the sun rose higher, warming the rocks and illuminating the path, Cole pressed on, carrying not only the memory of the desert but also the memory of the woman who had found him at the edge of death and brought him back with nothing but a whisper and the gentle care of her hands. The canyon, once a place of fear and isolation, had become a place of new beginnings, and for the first time in a long while, Cole believed he could face whatever came next. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow over the canyon walls. Cole McAllister felt the stiffness in his muscles ease as he guided Dusty along the winding trail. He had been walking carefully for a while now, letting the horse move at its own pace, taking in the rugged beauty of the desert. The rocks glimmered gold in the sunlight, and small wildflowers, surprisingly resilient, peeked out from cracks in the stone. It was a world both harsh and beautiful, a reminder that life could exist even in the most unforgiving places. Though his body was healing, Cole's mind wandered back to the woman who had saved him. Her presence had been quiet yet powerful, her whispers echoing in his mind long after she had disappeared. He didn't know her name or why she had chosen to help him, yet he felt an invisible thread connecting them. Something about her had touched him deeper than anyone had in years, perhaps since the family he had lost. He realized he wanted to see her again, to understand the wisdom behind her quiet guidance. As the hours passed, Cole moved deeper into the canyon. The shadows shifted with the sun, and the wind carried the faint scent of sage and herbs, reminders of the woman's presence. He began to notice small signs around him, a carefully arranged pile of stones, footprints in the sand that did not belong to Dusty, and the occasional flash of movement among the rocks. Each time he paused, heart pounding, wondering if she was near. But when he looked closely, the traces always seemed to vanish, as though she had been a part of the canyon itself, there, yet just out of reach. Cole's thoughts returned to his own life and the mistakes he had made. He thought of the ranch, of the friends he had lost, of the years he had spent trying to survive rather than truly live. The canyon's quiet forced him to confront the emptiness he had carried inside. For the first time in a long while, he admitted to himself that he had been running, not just from the desert, but from his own failures and regrets. Each step he took now felt like a chance to change, to move forward with intention rather than aimless survival. Late in the afternoon, the trail opened to a small, hidden spring tucked between two cliffs. The water was clear, and a few birds fluttered nearby, dipping down to drink. Cole dismounted and led Dusty to the edge of the pool. He knelt and drank deeply, letting the cool water wash over his parched throat and dry lips. Dusty drank eagerly, and Cole watched him, smiling faintly. Even a simple act like drinking from a spring felt miraculous after days of thirst and struggle. As he rested, a faint whisper reached him again. It was almost lost in the soft rush of water and the whispering wind, yet unmistakable. Cole froze, scanning the canyon, and then saw her, standing a short distance away, partially hidden among the rocks. The woman's dark hair glimmered in the sunlight, and she held her hands together, as if offering quiet blessings to the land around her. She made no sudden movements, only watching him with calm, steady eyes. Cole approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. As he drew near, she raised one hand, pointing toward the spring. Cole understood. She was inviting him to rest, to take his time, and perhaps to learn something more than just survival. He nodded silently, kneeling again to drink and allow Dusty a chance to refresh himself. Each sip of water felt like nourishment not only for his body but for his spirit, a small renewal of hope that had been dimmed for so long. After a while, he felt a soft vibration in the air, the whispering voice again. This time it was closer, clearer, almost like it was speaking directly to him. Cole closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him, though he could not understand them fully. He sensed the rhythm, the cadence, and the gentle insistence that he listen. There was a message here, something beyond language, a message of patience, resilience, and trust. Slowly, a warmth spread through his chest, a sense of life returning to places he had long thought empty. He opened his eyes to see her standing closer now, a faint smile touching her lips. She reached into her bundle of herbs and pulled out a small feather, smooth and light. She placed it on a flat stone in front of him. Cole touched it cautiously. It was soft, delicate, yet it seemed to vibrate with energy. The woman's eyes met his, and in that gaze, he felt a silent lesson. Life was fragile, but strength came from understanding, from connecting with the world and people around you, even when fear and doubt tried to hold you back. The afternoon passed slowly, the canyon quiet except for the gentle splash of water and the whispering wind. Cole watched the woman carefully, noting every small movement, every gesture. She was graceful and deliberate, moving with the ease of someone deeply connected to the land. He realized that her presence was teaching him something important. Survival alone was not enough. True strength came from observation, patience, and listening. Even the smallest details could reveal truths he had overlooked in his rush to survive. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the canyon in shades of orange and gold, the woman motioned for Cole to follow her. He rose cautiously, Dusty close at his side, and stepped after her. She led him along narrow ledges and hidden paths, showing him the secrets of the canyon. A hidden patch of edible roots, a place where water collected even in dry seasons, and small shelters made from rocks where travelers could rest safely. Each discovery was a lesson in resilience and resourcefulness. Cole realized he had been given not only a chance to live but the tools to do so wisely. Night approached quickly, and the woman built another small fire, careful to keep it low and shielded. Cole sat nearby, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude and awe. She did not speak much, but her presence was enough. Slowly, she began to whisper again, phrases that seemed like a song, repeated in a rhythm that felt like it belonged to the canyon itself. Cole listened, letting the sound seep into his mind and heart. He felt the weight of his fears lift slightly, replaced by a sense of calm determination. He realized that this woman, whoever she was teaching him more than just survival. She was teaching him about life, about patience, about listening, about understanding that strength was not just physical but also spiritual and emotional. Each whisper, each gesture, each quiet action was a reminder that even in the most desolate places, life could offer guidance and hope. Hours passed, and the stars began to twinkle overhead. Cole lay on the ground near the fire, listening to the gentle murmur of her voice. Sleep came slowly, but it was a deep, restorative kind of rest he had not known in days. He dreamed of the canyon, of the streams and rocks, and of the woman's face, calm and serene, always guiding him forward. When he awoke the next morning, the world felt different. The canyon was the same, rugged and harsh, but Cole himself felt changed. He was stronger, more alert, more aware of his surroundings. He understood that survival would require more than strength or skill. It would require understanding, patience, and the quiet wisdom of those who truly knew the land. He turned to look for the woman, but she had disappeared once again, leaving only traces of her care and the lingering sense of her whispers in the wind. Cole mounted Dusty, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He would continue along the trail, yes, but now with a new understanding. That life was not just about enduring, but about learning, observing, and connecting. As the sun rose, illuminating the canyon in brilliant light, Cole pressed onward. He knew challenges still awaited him, dangers and hardships that could test his resolve. But he also knew he carried something more powerful than fear or exhaustion, a sense of hope, and the quiet wisdom imparted by a stranger who had appeared at the brink of death and taught him to listen to the world around him. And as he rode, he whispered to himself the rhythm of the voice that had saved him, though he could not yet understand the words. He knew the meaning would reveal itself over time, as long as he remained open, patient, and willing to learn. The morning air in the canyon was crisp and cool, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and earth warmed by the sun. Cole McAllister stirred from his sleep, feeling stronger than he had in days. His body was still tired, but the exhaustion that had weighed him down seemed lighter now, replaced by a quiet determination. Dusty stood nearby, ears flicking, eyes alert. Cole patted the horse's neck, grateful for his constant companion, and swung himself into the saddle. Today, he decided, he would continue along the hidden paths the woman had shown him, trusting the lessons she had quietly imparted. The canyon walls loomed high on either side, jagged and imposing. Cole's eyes scanned every rock, every shadow. He had learned to notice small details, the tracks of animals, the way the wind shifted, the tiny signs that water or food might be nearby. His mind felt sharper, more attuned to the desert's rhythms. He guided Dusty carefully along a narrow ledge, the path barely wide enough for the horse's hooves. A misstep here could be dangerous, but Cole moved with calm precision, remembering the woman's guidance. Patience and awareness were just as important as speed or strength. Hours passed as they wound through the canyon. The trail became steeper, rocks loose under Dusty's hooves, and the sun climbed high overhead. Cole paused often, checking Dusty's footing and scanning the horizon. He knew the canyon was full of surprises. The desert had taught him that danger could come in unexpected forms, not just from animals or storms, but from the land itself. Every decision mattered. As the afternoon approached, Cole spotted something unusual, a narrow passage leading off the main trail, partially hidden by boulders. It was the kind of place he might have ignored in the past, but something urged him to investigate. He guided Dusty carefully into the passage. The path was steeper, rougher, and more challenging. Loose stones slid under his boots and the walls pressed close, making the canyon feel almost like a maze. Suddenly, Dusty stumbled, one hoof slipping on the loose rock. Cole's heart leapt into his throat. He grabbed the reins tightly, leaning forward to steady the horse. The animal recovered, but the scare reminded Cole how fragile his position could be. One wrong step, one moment of inattention, and the canyon could claim him. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm, just as the woman had taught him. Panic could be worse than danger itself. Cole pressed on, climbing higher and higher. The sun dipped lower and shadows stretched long across the rocky walls. He could feel the chill of evening approaching. As he rounded a bend, he froze. Ahead, a small rockslide had blocked the narrow path, the stones unstable and dangerous. Cole's pulse quickened. He could see no other way forward. Going back would be slow and exhausting, but the path ahead seemed treacherous. He dismounted, leading Dusty carefully along the edge of the obstruction, testing each stone before putting weight on it. Hours passed as he navigated the rockslide. The work was exhausting, testing both his strength and patience. Sweat ran down his face, dirt clung to his clothes, and every muscle ached. Yet, with careful steps and constant attention, Cole slowly made his way across. Dusty followed closely, trusting Cole's guidance. When they finally reached solid ground, Cole sank to his knees, breathing heavily. The canyon around him was silent except for the soft whistle of wind through the rocks. He realized that this trial had tested more than his body. It had tested his mind and spirit. As he rested, he noticed movement in the distance. A shadow flickered along the canyon wall. Cole's heart leapt. Could it be her, the woman who had helped him before? He stood, squinting into the distance, but the figure vanished almost immediately. Cole felt a strange mix of relief and longing. The woman had taught him patience, and now he realized that part of the lesson was to act with careful observation. Not everything in life revealed itself all at once. Some truths came slowly, requiring attentiveness and trust. Night fell quickly, and the canyon grew dark and cold. Cole found a small overhang in the rocks and decided it would serve as shelter for the night. He gathered some dry brush and small stones, building a low fire to keep warm. Dusty settled nearby, nudging Cole gently as if offering reassurance. Cole stared into the flames, thinking of the lessons he had learned so far: patience, observation, trust, and the quiet power of guidance. These were not just skills for survival, they were lessons for life itself. As he watched the fire, he heard it again, the whispering voice. It was faint but unmistakable, carried on the wind that slipped through the canyon walls. Cole closed his eyes, letting the sound fill his mind. The whispers seemed to carry meaning beyond the words themselves. They spoke of resilience, of strength that comes not from force but from understanding. They reminded him that he had survived this far because he had learned to listen, to move carefully, and to respect the land and its hidden paths. Cole drifted into a restless sleep, his dreams filled with the canyon's shadows and echoes. In the dream, he was climbing higher than ever before, navigating cliffs and ledges that seemed impossible to cross. Yet, he felt guided, as though an invisible hand was showing him the safest way. He reached the top, and for the first time he could see beyond the canyon walls, the vast desert stretching endlessly, full of challenges but also full of beauty and opportunity. When he awoke, the sky was pale with dawn. The fire had burned low and the canyon was quiet. Cole stretched, feeling the stiffness in his muscles but also a sense of readiness. Today would bring new challenges, he knew, but he felt equipped to face them. He mounted Dusty, scanning the trail ahead. The path twisted and turned, narrow ledges giving way to steep drops, but he moved with confidence, aware of every step, every foothold, every small stone. As the sun climbed, he encountered another obstacle, a fast-moving stream that had swelled from a recent rainstorm. The water rushed over rocks, creating a barrier that seemed difficult to cross. Cole dismounted and examined the stream carefully. He remembered the lessons from the woman: observation first, action second. He spotted a series of flat stones that jutted out of the water, forming a natural bridge. One by one, he led Dusty across, testing each stone for stability. The horse moved slowly, trusting Cole's guidance, and together they made it safely to the other side. Cole's confidence grew with each success, but he also felt a growing awareness of the canyon's power. He realized that while he had survived this long, the desert and its hidden challenges demanded respect. Every step required focus, every decision mattered, and complacency could be dangerous. The woman's teachings echoed in his mind: patience, observation, understanding. They were more valuable than speed, more valuable than strength alone. As the day wore on, Cole climbed higher into the canyon, the sun beating down and the wind whipping through the rocks. He felt fatigue creeping back into his body, but he welcomed it. It was a reminder that he was alive, that every step forward was a triumph over the hardships he had endured. Finally, he reached a plateau that overlooked a wide valley below. The view took his breath away. The desert stretched endlessly, golden and wild, dotted with patches of greenery where water had collected. For the first time, he felt a sense of accomplishment, a quiet pride in his perseverance. He set up a small camp for the night, carefully building a fire and arranging rocks to protect it from the wind. Dusty grazed nearby, ears twitching at every sound. Cole watched the canyon's shadows lengthen, feeling a connection to the land that went beyond survival. He had learned to read its signs, to understand its rhythms, to respect its power. The trials of the day had tested him physically, mentally, and emotionally, and he had emerged stronger for it. As darkness fell, he heard the whispers again, faint but unmistakable. Cole closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the woman who had guided him, but for the canyon itself, for the challenges that had forced him to grow, for the lessons hidden in every rock and stream, for the strength that had been awakened within him. Cole drifted into sleep, feeling both weary and alive. He knew the canyon still held dangers, but he also knew he had the tools to face them. The trial of the day had been more than a test of endurance. It had been a test of character, patience, and spirit. And Cole had passed, guided by the quiet teachings of a stranger whose wisdom had saved him in ways he was only beginning to understand. The morning sun broke over the horizon, painting the canyon in soft shades of gold and pink. Cole McAllister stirred awake, feeling the warmth of the sunlight on his face and the steady presence of Dusty at his side. The trials of the past days had left him stronger, more alert, and more aware of the desert's rhythms. The lessons he had learned from the woman, the quiet wisdom of patience, observation, and respect, were etched deeply into his mind. Today, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that he could face whatever challenges lay ahead. He mounted Dusty carefully, checking the horse's hooves and legs to make sure he was fit for the journey ahead. The path before him wound through the canyon, leading to places he had never dared to explore. Yet, unlike the first days, he no longer felt fear gnawing at him. Instead, he felt anticipation, curiosity, and an unshakable determination to continue forward. Every rock, every shadow, and every breeze seemed familiar now, a language he could understand after days of careful attention. As Cole rode along the winding trail, he found himself thinking of the woman who had appeared when he was on the brink of death. Her soft whispers, her careful hands, her knowledge of the land, it all seemed almost miraculous. He did not know her name, or why she had chosen to help him, yet he felt gratitude deeper than words could express. He realized that she had done more than save his life. She had taught him how to live fully and carefully, to notice the world around him, and to trust in his own abilities while remaining humble before nature's power. Hours passed as he navigated narrow ledges, steep climbs, and winding paths. Dusty moved with steady determination, trusting Cole's guidance as much as he had learned to trust himself. Along the way, Cole began to notice small signs of life that he had overlooked in the past. The bright petals of a desert flower clinging to a rock, the tracks of a rabbit disappearing into the brush, the distant song of a bird echoing through the canyon. Each small discovery filled him with wonder and gratitude, reminding him that even in harsh places, life persisted in quiet, beautiful ways. By midday, Cole reached a part of the canyon he had not explored before, a wide plateau overlooking a valley below. The view was breathtaking. The valley stretched endlessly, dotted with clusters of trees, sparkling streams, and patches of wildflowers. The sun reflected off the water, creating tiny sparks that seemed to dance across the landscape. Cole felt a profound sense of awe. The desert had been harsh and demanding, but it had also guided him to this place, a place of beauty and promise. He dismounted, letting Dusty graze while he sat on a flat rock, taking in the scene. As he rested, he heard it, the faint whispering voice again. Cole froze, heart racing, and looked around. The voice seemed to come from the wind itself, flowing through the rocks and trees, carrying a rhythm and cadence that felt both familiar and comforting. He closed his eyes, letting the sound fill him. Though he could not understand the words, he felt their meaning deeply. They spoke of strength, resilience, hope, and the quiet power of life's connections. Cole realized in that moment that the woman's teachings had become a part of him. Her whispers were no longer only external. They had entered his heart, guiding him from within. Cole spent the afternoon exploring the plateau, learning to read the land in new ways. He found small pools of water hidden beneath rocks, edible roots and berries that could sustain him, and even signs of animals that could lead him to food if needed. Each discovery reinforced what he had learned. Survival was not just about strength, speed, or luck. It was about patience, careful observation, and respect for the world around him. The canyon had tested him in countless ways, but he had grown with each challenge, becoming stronger, wiser, and more capable. As the sun began to sink behind the distant cliffs, Cole prepared for the evening. He found a sheltered spot near a small grove of trees and built a fire, keeping it low and safe. Dusty settled nearby, content to rest after the long day. Cole watched the fire's flickering light, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The memory of the woman's presence was vivid in his mind. The gentle strength in her eyes, the deliberate care in her actions, and the whispers that had guided him when he felt he had nothing left to hold on to. She had saved him in more ways than one, and he would carry her lessons with him for the rest of his life. As night fell, the canyon grew quiet. Cole lay near the fire, staring up at the star-filled sky. The Milky Way stretched across the heavens, a river of light that seemed to connect the earth below with the infinite above. In that moment, Cole felt a profound sense of peace. He had survived the desert's trials, but more importantly, he had learned to listen, to observe, and to trust, not only in the world around him but in himself. The whispers of the woman lingered in his mind, a constant reminder that life was a balance of strength and patience, courage and humility. Cole drifted into a deep sleep, and in his dreams he saw the woman again. She stood among the rocks, her dark hair flowing in the wind, her eyes calm and knowing. She did not speak, yet he felt her presence guiding him, encouraging him to continue, to grow, and to live fully. The dream was not just a memory, it was a vision of what he could become, a reflection of the strength and wisdom he had gained through his trials. The next morning, Cole awoke to the soft glow of dawn. The canyon was quiet, the air filled with the scent of earth and blooming flowers. He felt renewed, ready to continue his journey. Dusty nuzzled him gently, and Cole smiled, feeling a deep bond with his loyal companion. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, equipped not only with survival skills but with the wisdom and patience the canyon, and the mysterious woman, had taught him. Cole mounted Dusty and began to ride, following a hidden trail that led out of the plateau and toward the open valley below. As he descended, he noticed the small signs of life everywhere, tracks of animals, blooming flowers, and the glimmer of water reflecting sunlight. Each sight reinforced his connection to the land and his place within it. The desert, once harsh and unforgiving, now felt like a teacher and a guide. He had come to understand that life's challenges were not obstacles to fear, but lessons to learn from. Hours later, as he reached the valley floor, Cole saw a distant figure moving along the trail. His heart leapt. Could it be her? He spurred Dusty forward, eager to find out, but as they approached, the figure vanished behind a cluster of rocks. Cole slowed, realizing that her presence was not meant to be permanent. She had appeared when he needed her most, guiding him back from the brink, but now it was his turn to walk the path she had shown him, carrying her lessons in his heart. Cole rode on, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He had been on the edge of death, exhausted, alone, and lost. Yet through the quiet guidance of a stranger, through patience, observation, and the whispers that had touched his soul, he had found strength, hope, and a renewed will to live. The woman had saved him not just physically, but spiritually, awakening a resilience and clarity he had never known. By evening, Cole reached the edge of a wide river, the water glimmering in the fading light. He led Dusty down to the bank, letting the horse drink deeply. Cole knelt beside the river, cupping the cool water in his hands and letting it refresh him. He thought of the woman's whispers, the lessons hidden in every gesture, and the quiet strength he had gained. He understood now that life's true power came not from force or skill alone, but from awareness, patience, and respect for the world around him. As the sun set, Cole made camp near the river. He built a small fire, arranging rocks to protect it from the wind. Dusty grazed nearby, content and calm. Cole sat by the fire, gazing at the reflection of stars in the water. For the first time in what felt like years, he experienced a profound sense of peace. He had survived, yes, but more importantly, he had transformed. The desert had tested him, the trials had challenged him, but he had emerged stronger, wiser, and more aware. Cole whispered softly to himself, repeating the rhythm of the voice that had saved him. Though he could not understand the words, he felt their meaning deeply. They were now a part of him, guiding him forward, reminding him that even in the harshest places, life offered lessons, hope, and the possibility of renewal. As the night grew quiet, Cole realized that he was no longer the man who had stumbled into the canyon days ago, exhausted and near death. He was stronger, wiser, and more connected, to the land, to Dusty, and to the lessons of the woman whose whispers had brought him back to life. He knew that he would carry these lessons with him for the rest of his days, living not just to survive, but to grow, to observe, and to appreciate the quiet beauty and wisdom of the world around him. And so, as the stars shone above, and the canyon settled into peaceful darkness, Cole McAllister felt a deep sense of gratitude, understanding, and rebirth. He had been on the brink of death, but the whispers, the guidance, and the care of a mysterious stranger had brought him back, not just to life, but to a life filled with awareness, hope, and the courage to face whatever lay ahead.